Okay, here we go, vlog time. You guys, I'm gonna be doing a new build. I'm gonna be moving my personal rig out of the Light Base 900, as you can see right there. I've been using this for a while. At home, the room temps are a little bit warmer. The AC is not as good, obviously, as a room like this. But the two 360s, the thin 360s, is just not quite enough cooling, in my opinion, for the 5090 and the 9950 X3D. So I'm gonna be moving into the HAVN 420. That way I can run 420 rads and potentially even some thick 360s if I need to. There's some conflicting, there's technically some conflicting areas of you try to run multiple 420s, they'll impact each other. So I might have to run a 360 in one area. So you guys said recently, Jay, I wanna see less pretty montagey builds, which no slight at Phil. Everyone loves the montages.
What did I do?
But people want to see more of the process along the way, and I get it. So that's what we're gonna do today. Meet the Athena M4M from Gamdias, a compact micro tower built for gamers, creators, and anyone who wants big performance in a small footprint. Right out of the box, the Athena M4M makes a statement with its mesh front panel, a sleek RGB light strip, and 3 pre-installed Notice M1 fans, all tied together with an 8-port fan hub and a PSU extension cable, making it for an easier build. The build quality is rock solid. Modular detachable panels with clasps and thumb screws make every section easy to access, and its minimal design fits perfectly into modern setups without taking over your desk. But airflow is where the M4M really shines. You get a perforated mesh front, side, and top dust filters, and a front-mounted PSU layout that keeps cables out of your cooling path, and pair that with the BTF motherboard support, your build looks clean from every angle. For cooling power, the included Notice fans deliver smooth, quiet airflow, and the case supports up to 9 fans total. And yes, the compact tower handles dual 360mm radiators, top and bottom, giving you water cooling potential, normally reserved for much larger cases. And despite its small size, compatibility is huge. GPUs up to 395mm in length, M-ATX motherboards, and PSUs up to 150mm, the Athena M4M gives you the flexibility of a full tower and a footprint that fits anywhere. The Athena M4M, small case, massive potential.
Hi.
So fortunately, as with all of my builds, I'll be changing the block too. It's still gonna be a DeltaMate block, it's just this was an engineering sample that wasn't quite indicative of the way that he's gonna be finalizing the block. I have one of those now. In fact, I've got a really big care package right there from Thermal Grizzly with all kinds of stuff from them, so I might even change the CPU block, but we'll see. But fortunately, I built myself a drain right here. There's also a drain technically right there. Distro plate screen. I even got myself a different screen. Bigger case means I can go with bigger screen. So I got a bunch of stuff for this build, but first things I gotta do is I've got to bleed this one. It's pretty simple the way I bleed it though. I'll undo the fill cap up there, put a tube with fitting with a tube, actually hook my air compressor up to it to push air into it, and then when I open this up, I'll have a tube running into our sink, and then the pressure will literally just push all the fluid out. That way we'll get most of the fluid out. That way I'm not dealing with drips and stuff everywhere. But I probably won't be reusing any of these rads or these fans unless I have to go with the 360. I won't be reusing the EK rads top and bottom, but I've got other stuff and we'll show that when I get to that point. All right, so I just got my small air compressor right here. Got my drain tube plugged in here. The fitting is still closed right now. And then I've got my inlet tube right here, which is at the top of the reservoir. So I'm gonna let it sort of just naturally, come on, it's tight, there we go. I'm gonna let it sort of naturally drain. That. This is mostly a water mix anyway. But anyway, with blue dye in there, just a couple drops of blue dye to try to make it look more ice bluey. But as you can see, clearly the bottom rad is below the drain and only so much has come out. Like you can see mostly the reservoir is empty now. But this is where the air compressor comes in. Jesus! I thought I turned the pressure down enough, but apparently 20 PSI is too much. Phil, it finally happened!
Oh, Jesus.
It attacked. There's a reason why Nick's resting face looks like this. It's because he's worked for me for too long. That's what I was going for. Sick, and just like that, we're pretty empty. We were just getting like little bits of like sneezes worth of fluid coming out. But yeah, everything's pretty much dry enough now to where we can take it apart without worrying about getting gobs of whatever. It was a really, really easy process. I mean, nothing went wrong. I did not do that on purpose, by the way, of it like going. So what you guys couldn't see was the hose went
out of the sink.
Yeah, it popped out of the sink and just went all over Nick. That's why it literally makes it up like halfway up his sweater and then it starts at his feet. All right, so now I'm gonna move it over to the table. I'm gonna get the main components out. I'm reusing all the components. I'm not doing anything different. Keeping my drives the way they are. Nothing's bifurcating weird. I will be taking the graphics card apart though, because like I said, I'm using a different block. Maybe before we do that, I should take a look at the other stuff that I got. Okay, so starting with radiators, I bought this stuff, by the way. This was not sent for sponsorship. Radiators are kind of hard to find right now. The whole economy and everything has really just jacked it up. So here is the XR5 420 V2. The V2 actually is a bit different than the V1. It's got more of a semi-gloss kind of a finish rather than a really dusted matte, which I like. I like the way the end tanks look better. So I got 3 of these, thinking I'd be able to fit 3 of them in the HAVN 420, but that's not really gonna happen. So I also bought 3 of these, which are the XR7 360 V2s, but the XR7, not the XR5. So the XR7 is thicker. They don't make a 420 in the XR5 that I could find anyway, otherwise I would have gone with that. But I got 3 of these because I may just mix and match the 360 with the 420s. It depends on my OCD, but I know I could fit 3 of those. Then I got a mountain of the QX140 RGBs. Now, fun story about these. Yes, I paid $48 a piece for these. It really sucks. I did reach out to Corsair and ask for sponsorship on the fans, because I bought all of these as well. Like these over here that are in this, like I bought all these. I spent a stupid amount on fans. I'm like, you know what? I haven't reached out to any brands in forever and been like, can you send me something for my build? So I asked them for 10 QX140s in black, right? I mean, that seems like a pretty simple request. 10 QX140 RGB iCue link fans. And so far I've been running iCue for a while in the personal rig. Haven't had any weird issues, but we all know how people feel about iCue and that's perfectly fine. But I wanted to do something different than Lee & Lee. I've been using Lee & Lee for everything. So I was like, let's change it up. But I asked for 10 and they said, sure. This is what I got. I got 3 2-packs, not to be confused with Tupac, but 2 packs of QX140 RGBs in white. It's not the right number and it's not the right color. So let me back up here for a second. Because I know some of you right now are going, oh, entitled YouTuber complains didn't get right thing for free. Okay, and that's valid. You can think that, that's fine. I don't abuse the relationships we've created with certain brands. But when we ask and they say yes, I don't think it's unreasonable to expect the thing you actually asked for, not something completely different, wrong color, wrong quantity. But more importantly, it makes me wonder, when brands can't get that right to somebody who's gonna showcase their stuff, how much are they messing up for you guys? So anyway, yeah, I guess a lot of the emails I get about people saying I got the wrong thing, blah, 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 they're ghosting me, they won't respond, because here's the thing, we did email back and we're like, we got the wrong stuff. Hello, crickets. So that's why I paid $500 for those. But if I need any of the 120s for the 360s, I'll just use those that are out of there, and I do have a few more of those if I need to. But I wanted to use the link, you know, the iCue link, see if it's as buggy or bad as people's been saying. So far, mine's been completely solid, no issues. I also got this. I just wanted to see if it was any good. It's called Lightsaber. Basically, it goes on under your motherboard and it creates edge lighting for your motherboard. And then I got a bigger LED display for my sensor panel. This one's an 11-inch versus an 8-inch. Have you ever been disappointed in an 8-inch? Okay, so this is actually a distro plate designed for the HAVN 420, which is right here. This is the case I'm gonna be using for my build. I fell in love with it when I first saw it. I actually bought that. Again, so much of this stuff people don't realize I buy the crap out of this stuff because I just don't want to sometimes deal with the brands. I just want to buy it and off we go. I don't want to deal with the bureaucracy behind it. But I fell in love with that case. I bought it on Amazon and then it got delayed in shipping. And so I moved to the Light Base 900 and then it showed up and I fell in love with it and I was like, dang. And I even said that in the videos. I was like, man, I should have just waited. But this is a distro plate designed for that case. from Singularity Computers out in Australia. I love these guys. They have sent me so much stuff. In fact, I think I'm actually going to utilize one of their radiator boxes that they sent me forever ago for my water cooling testing station, because having the pump and the reservoir and the radiators and everything in one unit with quick disconnects would be so easy for testing water cooling stuff. It's just its own unit. And then when needed, bring it in, plug it in. When done, put it aside, you know, super simple. So I think I'll go with that, but I'm not convinced yet. I'm not 100% convinced I want to run a distro plate in this build. I might go back to a more traditional reservoir, cylinder reservoir. In fact, I have another one exactly like what's in Skunkworks, which is a Alpha Cool cylinder res, but it's made of glass. And I might go with that, to be honest, because distro plates are nice, but they don't have any depth to them. And I like having depth, like with the reservoir sticking out and stuff. So I've been running distro plates for ever since Nebula, and I kind of want to go back to standard distro plates. But as you can see right here, in fact, maybe I should just keep this from getting scratched. As you can see here, this is that's the fill port. That would be the return port. Fill port's always higher than the return. These are some anti-vortex spots that Daniel probably has noticed things will vortex, and so he put these little like posts in there to block flow to actually help smooth out the flow. Anyway, D5 goes there, D5 goes out of that to whatever, and then into here, which could then go over to like GPU, CPU. So I may use this, I may not. I'm not entirely sure. This is the pump cover, and then this is the O-ring, and then screws and stuff to like mount this down. What I was using in my previous build was actually the the EK FL360, just a generic pump res combo with no like distro built into it that I drilled and put fittings in where I wanted. So I'm gonna set this over here for now. Like I said, I'm gonna have to like mock that in place and see if I like it. But I'm excited for this package right here, because if there's one person on the planet that shares my love for water cooling in a time when everyone's like, water cooling is so stupid, it's Roman, AKA Der Bauer with Thermal Grizzly. Founder and owner of Thermal Grizzly, let me just point that out. He sent me a package. I asked for the block. I asked for, hey, do you have the final version of the block? I'm not happy with the ports coming out of the end. I want the ones that are built in for vertical mounting ports. He said, yes, I'll send that to you. It's with their new packaging and stuff, which I'm excited to see because we didn't have real retail packaging for the last one. But he said, I also sent you like an engineering sample or a early sample of their CPU block for AM5, which I'm excited for, and a whole bunch of fittings and things, I guess. So he is like going head first into the water cooling world. He's always been involved in water cooling and XOC and all that stuff. So I'm excited to see what he has sent us. Nick, we've got packing material for days.
Thanks.
So what is this? This is the brown box. That's always fun. Okay. Oh, these are gonna be fittings, it looks like. Can't see much because of the packaging. This is the DeltaMate GPU block through terminal. Oh yeah, he told me about that. I have to see how that works. So they were calling these fittings black chrome. I might stick with my EK fittings because I want the silver and black theme, but unless I fall absolutely in love with these. Packaging, it's a little tear tab, Velcro, or not Velcro, but Ziploc. That actually looks really nice. That's just straight up black. I think it was a 14 millimeter compression is what this should be. Single O-ring compression. Looks like is it actually screwed down? Okay, it does have a cap. Okay, I was like, can't not have a cap. So there you go, you put your tube in there. That'll lock down on it. This actually looked pretty nice. Now, I use quite a bit of extensions and 90s and all that sort of stuff. He said he included a bunch of that stuff. So let's see what else we got here real quick. Just kind of randomly open one and see what I got. These remind me of like, you know how everything for kids now is like mystery packs? Like you don't know what you're getting?
Loot boxes. Okay,
so that's a compression fitting for soft tubing. So the other one I showed you was the compression for rigid. This is soft tubing. I'm assuming these will all be the same. DeltaMate male extender. Giggity, giggity. Oh no, it says DeltaMate extender, not male extender. So that's designed to just create more height on something if you need it. Yeah, he told me straight up, he said nothing's embargoed, can show everything.
Okay. Matt, Nicholas, is that the black chrome you talked about maybe?
Maybe. So this Ooh, I like this color. Dang, too bad I'm not gonna have enough of these because these match what's on the end of the block. It's like that, it's got some machining oils on it. It's not silver and it's not like, I don't wanna say like brass, it's in between. Oh, that's so nice. And this is a rotary. So you can see in there, man, this is so over-engineered. Very German of you, Roman. Just want to point this out. But the entire thing swivels around the center post. So that's sick because instead of having a fitting like have this acronym that swings out, it stays centered and pivots in the middle. So that means it's gonna have the most like clearance for tight areas because you can see in the middle how it's got the fittings that like the flow kind of comes through. And then, yeah, that's cool. So this is now a compression. And then this, I love that color. That's so like elegant looking. There's the extender. Okay, so this is clearly a sampling. It was never meant to be enough to actually do a build. HT, okay, so ST is soft tubing, HT is hard tubing. These are all HT 16s. All right, so that's enough of that. We got the fittings figured out. Roman, I can't wait to see these when they're done. Especially this, because if we go over to the GPU block, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, might be desaturated, but that's silver and that's this color. You can see it's a little warmer, but you can see how that matches the block. Man, looks so good. You can see the warmth difference between silver versus that. I like that color a lot. Oh my God. Thermal Grizzly Captain insulation sheets. Are these gonna be for like, cause he saw that I've been trying to do more soldering? Yeah, that's what it looks like, huh? He's like, bro, protect the stuff you don't want the heat to hit. I don't do that. That's why replacing one SMD, I end up replacing 7 SMDs. This is another mystery box. AMD AM5 Miro Pro RGB engineering samples. Oh, look at that, yeah. See, these are torn apart so I can see the insides and stuff. It's so simple. Yeah, I might go with this for my CPU block because then I'll know I have DeltaMate matching components for GPU and CPU. It's always kind of bothered me that my GPU is a different brand than my CPU block. I've always matched blocks. In fact, my rigs back in the day before EK'd all over themselves was like everything matched. Fittings, radiators, blocks, tubing, all of that would match. I'm kind of like past that now. I don't feel like that's all that necessary, but yeah. Okay, so these are more, all kinds of fittings. Okay. So the last box you remember I got from Thermal Grizzly for the GPU wasn't like retail. That's full retail now. That's for ROG Astral 5090. Not gonna go through this too much because I've already done a whole installation video on this. In my opinion, one of the best GPU block installation experiences you can have based on just their manual alone, which is a PCB. But I wanna see the terminal on this guy, see if it's the same as that one. Because this is, the through terminal just replaces the end piece. I'm assuming this will be the same as that one. And if so, then I have to replace the end piece. Manual. Oh, we actually have a paper manual, which we didn't have last time. Colors. Colors make me happy, okay? All right, so this, thermal pads. I don't want to open all this up yet until I'm ready, you know what I mean? Okay, the block design, yeah. So this block design. Okay, this is the same as like what I have right now, where the fittings are on the end. So this whole piece gets replaced with that piece there. Der Bauer. Oh, Der Bench Table. Sucker's heavy. So this is designed to be kind of like just a regular bench table that you can plug all your motherboard and stuff in there, but then have a single spot to plug in things if you need. I may or may not use this, to be honest. I've used some similar stuff and it's got the legs and stuff right here. I might use it for the water cooling station. No, we'll see. But the bench table stuff is really nice as we do more testing. Having systems that are all function, little form, make the most sense. All right, that's everything in there. All right, well, I guess what I need to do now is tear the components out of that rig, and I'm gonna start with the GPU, so that'll be the fun part. Okay, got the GPU out, got the top rad out. It's funny, typically a system looks like this when either something has gone terribly wrong, or something incredibly fun is about to happen. Fortunately, in this instance, we're doing something terribly fun. So I got my, I need to take the power supply out, the cables. I'm gonna leave, I can leave the bottom rad in here for now. I may or may not reuse this 90-degree cable. It's just a cheap one from Amazon, but we'll see. Don't need this reservoir anymore. Don't need this sensor panel anymore. Just need to get the motherboard out at this point, and then the power supply, because I'm reusing that. But this is the block that I was using. I forget the brand that, oh, Optimus, that's right, it's Optimus block. It's very heavy duty. I'll stick, well, I don't know, geez. I'd have to assume Der Bauer has done his research on the block design. Not to mention, it was always kind of bugging me just how dull this black is versus all the other parts. So we'll just have to see when I cross that bridge. But I can take the front panel connectors off now. I can take USB out. No, it's a fan header. USB, another fan sensor wire, and the RGB. And then everything is, yeah. So let's see, USB-C. I love that this Gigabyte board has an HDMI header on it. It's perfect for the sensor panels. It's perfect for the sensor panel because it can just plug into that and not the GPU. Doesn't really make a difference. It's just a little cleaner that way, I guess. But I can actually get this board out now because I can access the bottom screws and stuff without having to take the bottom radiator out. I can handle all that later. Or as Nick will probably say, he never comes back to it later.
He in fact never comes back to it later.
So this has become like the teardown space. Yep. And what were we just saying?
About God.
All right, I went ahead and just tore down the entire case. There's nothing left in there except the stuff it came with initially. I guess a piece of zip tie, another piece of zip tie. Ooh, piece of zip tie. Anyway, as you can see, it looks like it exploded everywhere. Here's the link cables, here's the tubing and fittings and screws. And then we got parts over there, we got parts over there, we got parts over there, parts over there, parts over here. Now that everything's apart, I can put that tower away. And then, I guess I'm gonna do the block first. I'm gonna do the block. I'm gonna get that out of the way. Because that's the only thing keeping me from getting into reassembly phase. You look how hard he's working. More like hardly working. All right, so this is what the Optimus signature block looks like next to the Thermal Grizzly block, the MyRad or whatever they're calling it. Micro, is it Micro? M-I-C-R-O? Yeah, I guess a Micro Pro. It's definitely thinner, that's for sure. Oops. It's definitely thinner, but I think it's gonna look pretty good in there because the black like Cerakote on this is always like not match things very well, but I feel like this is gonna look pretty good on there. So we're gonna go ahead and try this guy out. My thing was I couldn't figure out which was inlet and outlet. Looking at it, I'm pretty sure the bottom is inlet because it looks like it goes in and then it splits out and then smooth exit up here. So it goes in there, splits left, splits right through the jet plate and then comes out right there. I'm assuming there's no manual. All right, so the block is installed. As you guys know, I like to get creative with cable management. So you can see the RGB wire coming off the top right there. And then what I did is I wired it behind those caps. So you can see on the top of the motherboard, there's those caps that are under the VRM heatsink. So I kind of wired them, threaded it behind there so it can come off behind the motherboard in a clean section, like where it doesn't really stand out. I do like the way this block matches, like the sheen of the black looks really good with the rest of the board. Nothing against the Optimus block, it's just so dull. It's one of the things I love most about the DeltaMate block is look at how much active cooling, well, at least active thermal transfer there is on the back of the block. This is like not as pretty as it normally is because of the fact that I've taken it off so many times. I was doing XOC and I used my own thermal pad there. But yeah, so this terminal gets changed with the new one. I'll show you that, but I'm gonna go ahead and take this block apart. If you wanna know more about the installation of the block, you can just look up DeltaMate on my channel and you'll find it. I already did a full install guide, but this is such a good block. Okay, so we're all set now. I've got the terminal exchanged on the new block. So now instead of having the fittings with 90s, which looked really bulky and stupid, now I have the pass-through, which is good. The top here is supposed to be the inlet. Yep, because it comes across, goes down and splits, comes out there. And then as you can see, I got the Thermal Grizzly block on there, as I said. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be done here in a sec. It's actually late in the afternoon. I'm gonna get the motherboard and maybe the GPU mounted in the case so I can see what kind of clearances I'm dealing with. Maybe do a quick test fit of the radiators, and then that's where we'll pause for the day. So this is what it looks like with the AlphaCool reservoir in there. Like I said, there's no attachment at the top because the bracket won't line up, like the top of it's right here in the middle of the fan. No matter how much I adjusted it, it won't reach. So I would just, because it lines up center with the hub on that fan, I would probably find a block that fits in there and just like two-sided tape. But anyway, it would be a tight run though to do 3 420 rads, because this is a radiator, that's a radiator, and that's a radiator right there. The fittings are down here. There's plenty of room if I use like extensions with 90s up. So I would have to go like out from the reservoir here, into the rad, out of the rad here, over there and in. I would probably do a long run because I like the way lots of tubing looks, rather than if I were to flip it and then have the fittings on this side. And then it would go out into the GPU back here, through the GPU out into the CPU block, out of the CPU block, up over into here, and then out and then back in the top right here. Now the downside about the top right there is that I don't have another fitting to be able to use as an inlet for filling or any of that, unless, yeah, see, you can't really see. There's these little stopper fittings up there. Gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna do this. Like, it would be neat because the light would shine through the reservoir, etc. Having all those as intakes would be great. The downside now is if I go to this guy, I lose all intakes on that back wall. And like I said, the whole reason why I'm going through this is the cooling for the fluid temperature was not sufficient. So if I do this, granted, yes, I have bigger fans, but I would lose the entire ability to have that back wall as intakes. Unless I find a way to somehow space this out to where I could have it mounted, like the fans could still be intakes, but they'd be behind the reservoir. If I can do that, I don't think I need 3 420 rads. That's a bit excessive. I just wanted to see if I could do it. They do all three fit if you use 30 mil rads and 25 mil fans. Nothing interferes. But I think this is starting to get a bit cluttered. And there's not really a way for me to attach this to the front of this 420 rad on the back wall. So I couldn't even think about like trying to space this on there, because then there, or like create some sort of adapters to mount this, because then there won't be enough room for fittings at the bottom. But anyway, that's where I kind of need to call it for the day. I got a video I got to get live. That would look neat, but I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, so it's the next day, and in typical custom PC building fashion, things are escalating quickly. And by escalating quickly, I don't mean getting done quickly, I mean dynamically shifting quickly. Let's talk about that motherboard wall and the 3 140 fans and the radiator and all that, and the plan of attack for today, because now it's gonna take more time because I'm gonna be customizing some stuff. So I had showed when we left off yesterday that I had a radiator here, and I was like, I could fit 3 420 rads in here if I wanted, but then this area here is gonna get really cluttered with trying to get the fittings and tubing and all that stuff over. So I've decided what I was gonna do is go ahead and use the distro plate from Singularity Computers, and I was gonna mount 3 140 intakes here. That way we could have plenty of fresh intake air going to the system. So as you can see, that would be lots of airflow. If we take a look at the front, check it out. I mean, this would look really, really clean. I'll probably have all intakes on this. So I'm gonna flip those fans on the top right there from exhaust to intake, I think, just all positive pressure. Everything's ventilated or filtered in this case. And then I would probably just have these 2 set as exhaust, honestly. So that would help exhaust, that would exhaust some top pressure, that would exhaust some bottom pressure. Lots of flexibility in this chassis. But here's the problem. What I was planning on doing was taking these long 6/32 by 47 millimeter radiator fans or screws. So I was gonna push them up through the fans. Then I was gonna, I have this spacer kit I bought forever ago on Amazon. I was gonna mount these spacers on there like that. That way I could mount the distro plate to this. Now, of course, there would be a lot of blocked airflow, but this would be almost more aesthetic than it would be functional. I mean, there would still be a fairly decent gap for airflow, as you can see, like right there. Better than some cases even. And it would still create fresh air being brought into the system. But the holes on the distro plate are here, 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 this corner, and this corner, which do not line up with the top screws and the bottom screws. So you can see right there just how far off the screw is. So what I'm gonna have to do now is measure, drill, and tap this acrylic. So that's why I'm saying it's gonna take longer now than I wanted, because I'm gonna now have to measure and make sure that that's all. It'll be easy though. I'll just mount the fans down to the top screws, then the bottom holes will be a perfect template. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, so I wanna show you guys how I got the precise measurements here. So I take the fans, make sure they're fully seated together. Remember, these do interlock. Takes 2 screws, and I'm going to thread them in on the top right here into their holes. Why is finding the hole always like, seem like the story of my life? Then I'm gonna take this screw and I'm gonna drop it in right there. And then I'm just going to let the screw head sort of spin on the acrylic. Just let it spin, do the same thing on the other side. And then what you'll see is it will have made a mark on the acrylic. So now I'll know exactly where I need to drill and tap the hole. Tap the hole, get it? That way it's not off. There you go. So you see there's one mark right there. And the other mark is right there. So now I just have to disassemble this, make sure I don't mess up the seals. And then on the fatter backing part is where I have to drill and tap the holes. All right, it's all back together. And here are the 2 holes that I added that you would never even notice. That one right there, and that one right there. They're threaded, they're tapped. So now I should be able to assemble how I wanted that on top of the fans over there with the spacers. Let's see. Oh, and something else I want to point out, especially in case Daniel was watching this, they're not 6/32, they're M4. So I did verify the threads, obviously, so they are the correct threads. 6/32 is too coarse. Makes sense. I mean, they're Australian. I would assume they were using metric, and then there's the original holes. So we good. Always double check your threads. And there we go. And they screwed in effortlessly. I didn't have to try and line anything up because I showed you how I lined it up. So the holes are absolutely perfect. So now we have a chunk of fan and reservoir. Let me stick that in. The cool thing is it can still be slightly adjusted up or down if needed, because the middle fans are screwed in to the frame, and then the other screws go through the fans into the reservoir as I showed you. So that's the backside. Still, I mean, there's a decent gap. It's not a huge gap, but there is a fairly noticeable gap between the fans and the reservoir. Like I said, not gonna exactly be the most ideal of airflow, but mostly aesthetic, but still offering some airflow. And now, that's what the front side of it looks like. So I'm not even gonna hook up the RGB that comes with it. Be a little bit cleaner for cable management, but obviously the lights will glow from the fans straight through that. So once I flip those top fans, those will all be intake, and I think that's gonna look pretty sick. Now, because this won't be done before tomorrow, I went ahead and spaced these out a little bit more. So before, the spacing was 12 millimeters with a 47 M4 by 47, and then it had a 12 millimeter spacer. Now these are 15 millimeter spacers with a M4 by 50 mil. I ordered some M4 55 millimeter long screws and a new spacer set that goes up to 20 millimeters on the spacers. So I can add 5 more millimeters of gap in here to increase the airflow a little more. But this is more just supplemental intake. It's not like hugely important to this particular build. So I might play around with that to see. I don't want to push this out too far into the chassis, because then it will make the tubing runs and everything a little bit more awkward. Okay, so a few developments since the last clip. I flipped this radiator around. I had the fittings over here, because like I said, I like long fitting runs. You can see I put the 140 exhaust in the back right there. This is still untouched from how you guys saw it. I did wire up some of the link cabling. This is one of the reasons why I love this concept so much. I mean, granted, software can make or break so many cool features, but a one cable plug-in like this, right? So these 3 fans are connected on this one cable, and that is coming out right here, right? The top fan, top 3, as you can see, are plugged into this cable right here, which is running up through here with the factory wiring for the front panel connectors, and then comes out right here. Now the two rear fans are connected to this cable right here, goes into that fan, but you can see I've got this cable right here coming off that fan and going straight down into that fan. So these two fans are connected via one cable. So I've got 3 leads for all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 fans, 3 wires that controls both RGB and fan speed and temperature, because each one of these fans have a temperature sensor on it. I don't use them for turning up and slowing down my fan speeds, because the temperature fluctuations I don't feel like are very indicative of the actual fluid temperature. What I would need to do is actually have some sort of an inline temperature sensor that can then plug into iCue. I don't think they have one, but I just end up using component temp. Honestly, I think it's better for me because it speeds up faster, responds quicker than the time it takes for fluid to go up. Let's see, pump top is on here. I do use manual pumps. I like to be able to turn up the speed and turn down the speed manually for especially trying to bleed air out. Got the wiring right there. One thing I wish they did on this chassis is I wish they had put a grommet here, like on the side of this part that sticks out, because then it would be a little bit neater run, I think. Let's see, the top I flipped to intakes, as you can see. So those 3 are intake, those 3 are intake, those 3 are intake, and then those 2 are exhaust. So this will help channel out some of the warm air that comes in from this top rad, and this will help channel out some of the warm air that comes in from this bottom rad. And then these 3 fans, like I said, you've already seen, they're fairly blocked off, but still will provide some fresh temperature inlet for the case. I think this is going to work pretty damn well. Let's see, it's kind of dark, but that block, the Der Bauer block, is wired up. You can see the cable coming up across right there. It comes out over there next to the 8-pin EPS, and it's actually plugged in right there. And the cool thing about this case, with its cable channeling, you can see it right here. So this is where it comes out. It's coming across this channel and then just going right back into the motherboard. So the cable management on this case is really, really good. And then here's my 8 pins right here. They are extensions that I use. So yeah, I just did that because it's quicker and easier than getting custom cables. Custom cables would be nice, but yeah. So I need to go ahead and plug in the rest of the front panel connectors, and then I can start planning out my loop, because the reason why I flip this radiator around is you can see when it comes to this reservoir distro plate, this is the outlet right here from the pump, and then this is a return that's designed to come up and over and then out here into the GPU, or technically the CPU, whichever. Now this is the inlet for the CPU as far as I can tell. Sorry, it's so dark. And that's the outlet. And then, yeah, so we should be able to go pretty easily out from here over to this part of the rad, and then the inside port on the rad over here to the return. And then that's the fill port. So because I do have some adjustability on this bottom rad, forward and back, I was hoping I could get these to line up perfectly with the distro plate. Then it just would have been a 90 and then another 90, and it would look like 2 tubes just kind of going into the reservoir. But they don't line up because it's the back 140s are too inset, and then this doesn't go back far enough because we run out of channel. Like, it doesn't slide anymore, there's no more groove. So as you can see, where the fittings are versus where the fittings are on here, what I'm probably gonna try doing is 2 rotary fittings on here, so I can rotary them out into the position they need to be, and then I can do the 290s like I want. These will probably be the very first 2 tubes that I do. But before I do that, I need to do a lot of the rest of the wiring, especially the front panel connectors, because once all the tubing and stuff starts going in, and you lose access to plugging in a lot of stuff. Okay, so I'm kind of an idiot. They do line up, as you can see. Well, with the rotary, they line up perfectly. They didn't line up naturally, but they do line up perfectly. And with the rotary, initially, I thought they didn't look like they line up, but you can see they're like pretty much on the same plane right there. So I'll be able to do the double 90s, which will be really clean right here, and then there'll be no tubing here, which is kind of nice, because one thing I haven't showed you guys yet is I've got this. This is my new sensor panel, which will actually be going right down there along the bottom. It's not a gloss screen, by the way. It is a matte screen, so I will be able to see and won't just be a reflection of those fans. But then the tubing, or not the tubing, but the cables will actually go up and into that grommet right there. So it'll be a nice sensor panel, nice, and it's 11.5 inches versus 8 inches. Giggity, giggity. But yeah, the thing is, I still need to figure out a drain. Typically, I would use some sort of like a T-fitting like this to do a drain, like down in the bottom rad somehow. That's not gonna work so well with this one because of doing the double 90 thing. Okay, it's been a couple hours since you guys last saw. It's fully wired up. You can see it's very dense on the wiring back here. Here's the iCue system here. So I've got one channel running in the back and then one channel handling the rest. Technically, we're 2 fans higher. So you can handle 14 fans per channel. See, that's a channel and that's a channel on the hub, and this is just a splitter. I have on that one channel 3, 6, 9, and 7 is where they soft limit it for full brightness, even though they can handle 14 fans per channel. But that's for white, and I'm not running a solid white LED. I tend to run sort of a kind of a nebula sort of a theme with like a purpley, pinky, vapor wavy color. But even though there's no tubing in here yet, and no fluid, I can unplug the pump right here, and I can turn this on and show you guys just how crazy the amount of light that there is in this thing. Look at this. And that CPU block really fills in that dead spot. But man, I'm actually pretty happy with this. Now I'm gonna start with these 2 90-degree bends like I said, and then I did get this to line up too into the inlet of the GPU. So this whole area here, which I normally in my builds will fill in with tubing, is gonna be completely tubing free. But that's because, as you can see, the sensor panel is so big, it's gonna really fill in that spot. Also too, I was like able to train my 12-volt high power cable to be kind of pleasing without just dangling there. So I think this looks pretty nice like that. But all right, let me get these tubes put in and then we'll see how that looks. Starting to get to the end here. I'm pretty happy with this. So here's the 2 front tubes. So far, everything you see here is just reused tubing. I haven't opened up a new pack because these are just 90-degree bends. So they were longer than I needed, so I was able to just chop them down. So you can see there's that. Figured out my drain. I'm just using a extra port off the GPU. All I need is a place for the fluid to come out and for me to attach a tube to. So the way this one works, cap comes off like that. It's threaded G-quarter, so I can put on a tube with a fitting and tube, and then I pull this out, like I pull that, and then it will start flowing. So it's going to work perfectly. And I've done this before in a different build. I don't know why I didn't think about it. Maybe because I was still thinking the old GPU had just the 2 ports. But because this has ports on the bottom and on the top, because I changed the terminal, now I have that extra port, so I can just swivel it out of the way, or I could leave it like that if I wanted to show, but I've got options. Then I can hook up my tube and fitting up here, and then I can do my air in, fluid out. So it'll actually work really, really well. As you can see, it's just another 90-degree bend out of here. So the loop goes out here into the rad, through the rad, back out the rad, into this distro plate, which transfers it along underneath and up to this tube, out of this tube into the inlet for the GPU, out of the GPU through my flow meter and temp sensor for the loop, and then up into the CPU. And now I think I'm gonna actually flip the top rad, so the fittings aren't here, they're gonna be on this side. So I'm gonna flip that now and see what options that gives me. Okay, a lot of time has elapsed now. You guys can tell I started doing a little less updates and a little more build, and Phil's holding the camera now. It is late in the afternoon, the second day. So actually I only spent a little more than not even 24 hours. I'm probably 11 or 12 hours into this build, to be honest. But it's done. You can see I even did a double bend for the heck of it, just for fun. I cheated still. I used rotaries, that way I can make sure they all land exactly where I want. But the loop is done. And now I've already done my leak test, basically, whereas I take remember my pressure gauge, and I pump up the loop with pressure and it holds, there's no leaks. So now we're gonna go ahead and do a vacuum fill. I know normally we do like a sick montagey fill. The problem is the reservoir on distro plates is not a lot of volume, and it takes forever to fill the entire loop that way and get air out. Today I'm just brute forcing it. I'm gonna use my vacuum pump to do this. I'm mixing my coolant right now. I need to have a jug that's large enough to have enough volume to know that it won't run out of fluid. Because if it runs out of fluid and sucks in air, then what was the whole point, right? So I've got plenty of that. Let's see, do I have another? That's blue. Okay, that should be plenty though right there, honestly. If it takes more than a half gallon, I'm just gonna put a little bit of blue in there though. Just a tiny bit of blue, because I want it to kind of have this like, I've been to Alaska a few times. I know what glacier ice looks like, and I just want it to have that slight kind of a frosted blue look to it. That's what we're going with. That's just, it has a lot of blue because it's very deep. The reservoir will look clear more than likely, but because the fans are right behind it, all that lighting is gonna blast through it anyway, so it won't matter what the inside of the reservoir looks like. That's why I unplugged, where is it? Here's the harness for it. I unplugged the harness for the reservoir, because I'm like, I'm not gonna turn on those RGB lights. I have enough RGB behind it. I don't need to add even more. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and create a vacuum in my loop. And I'm doing this through my fill or my drain port because it has the on off. I have to be able to lock it off so we don't lose any air, because what's gonna happen is I'm gonna pull the vacuum, I'm going to close it, unhook this, stick it down in the gallon jug here, make sure it's way down in the bottom because I don't want to pull in air, and then you'll see the magic just. Okay, I'm gonna close that off. So we've got vacuum in there still. Put this down inside there and watch the magic. Still going, still pulling, see? And then I'll just do a top off when needed. But the cool thing is now I can turn on the pump. Look at that, it's literally pulling in. But here's the point. The point is now I can turn on the pump and get some flow happening, and then I can just use the squeeze bottle. I'll use the squeeze bottle, I'll fill it up with this. But I had to think about every little thing. Like for instance, can I get to the fill port? This will fit right through there. There we go. So that's topped off. A lot of air in there. Yeah, none of the blue really shows. Now I could technically put some more drops of blue in the loop if I wanted. Oh, is it gonna go nebula? Yay! Nice. Even though I added more fans, it kept my color scheme. This is what I'm saying. Like, I know people are gonna be like, "Yeah, you can't just chill," but I have not. This is the first time I've ever run a system that has iCue in it. I take that back. I ran one in the beginning when it was new, and there's a reason why I stopped running it. But I've been running iCue now in this system at home for a while. It was running here for months. I built it in May. Phil was like, "You built it in May. You finally brought it home in like September."
And then like 2 weeks later, immediately.
No, it was October because it was for Battlefield 6.
Oh yeah.
And then it came back. But it came back because, like I said, the temperatures were not what I wanted them to be for fluid temp. Like, look at the fluid temp right now, 22.8. Here's what you don't understand. The moment I would turn the system on at home, it would be at like 30°C within a few minutes at idle. So I don't know if it was just something to do with the potential, like, obviously it's open chassis right now, but I don't know if it had something to do potentially with the Light Base 900 maybe having less optimized airflow or something, or the fact that we just have so much more radiator now. Because it's clearly going up, I mean slowly. It's funny, it said 22.9 and when I pointed at it, it was like 22.2. It was like, oh crap, he's looking at us. So what I'll typically do is I'll leave it here for a day or two and then I'll set it in like a position like this.
4 months.
Shut up. So the Thermal Grizzly CPU block clearly does not have the same problem the GPU block does, where it is nice and bright. It's brighter than the fans, which is kind of crazy. But look at these fittings right here. These are the amount of fittings I actually removed from the build. Like the Light Base 900 build had 90s and extensions and swivels everywhere. As you can see, this is a lot more simple. Like this rad right here just has 2 regular compressions coming off of it, no extensions to raise it up or do, because all of them had big extensions in 90s because I was doing long runs like across the rad and all that, but I didn't do that anywhere except for like right here. And then I'm kind of stuck with doing a 45 on that right there to get to the CPU block. It's a little busy in this area, but I'm okay with that. I feel like it's very industrially, and I've always liked that busy, lots of fittings look. Some people prefer a cleaner, all bends and no 90s. That's what's awesome about this. You can do it the way you like it. So there we go. I'm going to hand it off to Phil. I'm gonna let this bleed tonight, and then Phil can do his final montage work, and then we'll get out of here and we'll talk about building in this. There's a couple of things about this case that I love, and a few things that I don't love. Okay, so here we are to the triumphant conclusion to the video. We'll talk about whether or not it was worth it, but first, this isn't just to trigger Steve. This is day 3, technically now. Actually, technically day 4. Yeah, technically day 4, but yesterday doesn't count because I didn't do anything on this yesterday. But this has been running looping heaven now for about 12 hours. What times are it now? 8:20 in the morning. Okay, so about 16 hours. And let's talk about temperatures here real quick. You can see right now that the GPU temperature is at 42.5, 42.6, 42.5, 42.6. Memory junction, or the hottest memory spot recorded, is 50C. If we look down at the actual temperatures here, you can see GPU board temp 41.6, VRM temp 43, GPU MEM 1 and 2 is at 45 and 39. Other board temperature sensors and VRMs are nice and chilly. You can see it's pulling about 500 watts. It's not pulling a full load because Heaven will never do that. But this did a couple of things. One, it helps me get bubbles out because we keep the loop nice and warm. The warm fluid expands more, which helps move the bubbles. I wonder if I shake it right now if I'll get some bubbles to move. Let's see. Nope. There's a couple of little bubbles that are like kind of stuck to those little anti-Venturi things, but those will move eventually. But most of the micro bubbles are out, which is great. A lot of surface tension and friction on the distro plates for those bubbles to adhere to because of the machining lines. If it was like polished smooth, then they wouldn't stick as easily. But this config is working great. All 9 intakes and those 2 is exhaust. Did a smoke test with it. The bottom chamber comes up and goes right out through, my hand. Where's my hand? It comes up here and goes straight out the back, and then the top chamber comes here and goes straight out the back right there, so they don't even really like conflict. It's like 2 chambers, one on top, one on bottom. And the smoke test shows the air is absolutely coming in through that rear panel. Even though you can see I don't have the largest of gaps, it's 15 millimeters, there is a huge amount of smoke that comes off the side right here and just wraps around the glass to the front. That is just to keep the internal temperature lower, because the radiators are not going to be affected by this, because this right here is intake, that's intake, so it's getting fresh air from the top, that's intake, it's getting fresh air from the bottom. So the radiator temperatures are, like the fluid temperature and radiator air temp is not being affected by the case temp. They are affecting the interior temperature of the case, which can affect other components like RAM and SSD and any of the surface mounted components that need cooling. So the idea here was that this will bring in fresh air to mix with that warmed up air, so that we can make sure that we're not overheating. We're not gonna overheat, but still I wanna keep those things as cool as possible, especially the RAM. But let's see here. Oh my gosh, that is so, let's get my temperature sensor because that is running so ridiculously cool versus what it was before. Now the room temp here, okay, so if I kind of fling this around a little bit, we can actually get this sensor to touch the air, which is 21.4 C, 21.5 C right now. Cooling system's actually off right now. So this room, any warmth that's in this room right now, even though it's like 10 C outside right now, is because of the warmth of that system. But the ambient temperature is 21.8 or so right now. Try not to make you guys dizzy, I'm sorry, but yeah, so roughly mid 21s. Because of all of the heat going through the loop, we're getting about 28.3 C on the bottom and slightly warmer on the top. That's nuts. And then the loop temperature right now, 33.6 C on the loop. And then that's the flow rate above it. I was seeing 47 to 48 C at home in the same ambient temperature. Now the other amazing thing right here, look at the top, right, where it says GPU temperature right there. I'm gonna stop the test, watch how fast it drops. Where before, because the coolant would stay so warm, it would actually slowly ramp down. It would take 10 minutes for it to reach back to its idle temperatures. So let's see here. 33, 32, 31, 30. Fans are now ramping down. I mean, that's kind of nuts. I did do a temperature run on this. So if you remember, I did initial temperature testing with different fan configurations on the Light Base 900. I did all intakes. I did intake on the bottom, exhaust on the top. I did intake top, intake bottom, exhaust rear. Like I changed all the different configs to see if anything would matter. In that case, it didn't matter a whole lot, which is kind of interesting because all intakes on this one is definitely outperforming the Light Base 900's airflow capabilities. I'm assuming with the really thick panels, they have very thick panels. But obviously we have two 420 millimeter by 30 mil rads in here versus two 360 by 30 mil rads. This is 10 C cooler on the GPU core. We were hitting a max of 56 C and we're hitting a max of 46 C on this particular setup. All the same components. Everything is the same, just slightly bigger rads, same fans even, just 140 versions instead of 120. So we're not even like changing the brand of the fans, which would say, okay, maybe that has some impact. Even the same, no, not the same brand of rad. These are Corsair rads where the other ones were EK rads, and obviously the case. So yeah, so you can see on this chart right here, it not only is 10C lower, it reaches equilibrium sooner. Usually bigger rads take longer for it to fully hit equilibrium because they have a higher cooling capability, but the overall cooling capacity of the two dual 420s is significantly larger than the two 360s, and that's obviously showing. So when we talk about the cubic volume of these radiators, the 420 by 140 by 30 has a total cubic volume of 3,528 because I have two of those. And then the two 360s comes out to what? I did the math, 2,592 cubic centimeters. So we're 36% higher cooling volume with the two 420s and the two 360s. So it's definitely showing. And it's funny how two 360s should be more than enough cooling capacity to cool 600 watts worth of GPU and then maybe 70 watts of CPU while gaming. I think it was just some inefficiencies in the airflow that was really hurting things. Because the one thing I didn't show you guys and didn't tell you till right now is the temperature comparisons was with the HS420 with the side panel on and all panels on. And that temperature that was hitting 56 C on the BeQuiet Light Base 900 with all intakes was with the side panel off. So yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But anyway, the bottom line is I was curious as to whether or not this was going to be worth it through all the effort, and it was. And I got to test my drain because when I did my initial temperature testing, before I take it home, I always do like sanity check. Let's do, like you just saw right now, I just did 16 hours of heaven on loop, and I came in this morning and it was still looping, so fully stable, at least in heaven. I did some initial testing, like you saw with these temperatures and stuff, and I found that my RAM junction, my VRAM junction, was getting all the way up to 76C. And I'm like, what? How could the temperature on the memory junction be 76C while I'm seeing memory 1 and memory 2 on the actual board sensors show me that they were down in the 50s under full load? And that was under like Steel Nomad, which is a very heavy DX load. Tore it apart, got to use my drain. Works fantastic, by the way, but that pushes the air out, or the coolant out with air just like I wanted. No drips, no nothing. Took the block apart and realized there were 2 entire rows of VRAM chips that I forgot to put the heat thermal pads on. That's why you always test before you say, we're done. But we really are done now. The only thing I have to do with this system left is set my sensor panel up, because it's a different panel, it's a different resolution, it's a different orientation. I can't just in AIDA64 flip and move around the objects. I'm gonna have, fortunately, because the panel's horizontal now, like landscape, I can make the text and stuff bigger so my old man eyes can read them, the temperatures and stuff a little better, and I have more real estate to mess around with. Anyway, time to get out of here, guys. Normally this would be a multi-parter, but that's why you just got one video, as long as all those 3 parts would have been together normally. So, all right guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this build. Little teaser here. I'm gonna start doing something here in the future where each month I'll actually do a commissioned customer build. It's the first time I've ever offered this, where people can basically, I'll consult with you, we'll determine the parts that are gonna be in your rig, and basically you'll buy the system from me, and then I'll go get the parts and build it and make a series about it. And we'll do that for like 1 customer a month kind of a thing. But it'll be very restricted to like the lower 48 states. Will not be shipping internationally, will not be dealing with any of that freight. It includes Hawaii and Alaska for the same reasons why international shipping would be completely impossible with export, import, all that crap. So, but it gives me more opportunity to do custom builds like this that don't just go together without a purpose. It means you guys can get to see some interesting stuff. I will probably be limiting it to fairly high-end builds just to make them kind of interesting. I don't think anyone should pay a premium to have a YouTuber build their computer that's just basic parts that anyone could build themselves. But my channel is all about information on how to do that yourself. It's about custom tubing, water-cooled rigs like this with custom stuff that I reach out to brands and maybe even have to modify myself to make sure that we're getting it all dialed in exactly as you want. But that would be a customer thing. That would not be a sponsored, I'm doing this for you for free. You would obviously have to pay for all the parts and you know, some of the labor and whatnot. All right guys, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. I can't wait to get this build home. It looks so good. I'm very satisfied with the way it turned out. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.